Love from Seoul? You're looking for a super simple noodle dish that will change your life? You mean the one that you can't even make at 2 a.m. in just 15 minutes? Don't worry about it. I'm not talking about crazy viral recipes with weird clickbait titles. This is my version of creamy peanut butter noodles, and that will become your lifelong favorite. Today, we're gonna be making peanut butter noodles. It's creamy, savory, mildly spicy, and most importantly, it only takes 15 minutes to make. When you get home from work and you don't even wanna move your fingers, trust me, this recipe will be your lifesaver. For this, you will need some noodles, green onions, garlic, ginger, and a little bit of a cucumber. Now, some of you might say, Aaron, it's still a lot of ingredients. I thought you'd be much simpler than this. Okay, I get it. Then you can skip the green onion, ginger, and cucumber. But I need to make the best of the best because of my hungry bird at home. Otherwise, you will have to see her endless whining at the end of this video. Alright, let's prep the vegetables. First, thinly slice 2 green onions and separate the whites and greens. Next, smash 3 cloves of garlic and finely chop them. Once that's done, grate a small knob of ginger. About half a teaspoon will be enough. This time, take some cucumber and cut it into thin matchsticks. If you want to reduce the prep time, you can replace it with some cilantro and just tear it up with your hands. But I know some of you are in I hate cilantro club, so I'm gonna stick with cucumber this time. You're welcome. The next step is totally optional, but I'm gonna be grinding 2 tablespoons of roasted peanuts. Trust me, these crushed peanuts, not peanuts, will make it look gorgeous, and nobody would think this is a 15-minute recipe. Alright, let's move on to the sauce. In a small container, add 3 tablespoons of creamy peanut butter, 1 tablespoon of soy sauce, 1 tablespoon of oyster sauce, half a tablespoon of chicken bouillon powder, 1 tablespoon of vinegar, 1 teaspoon of sugar, 1 tablespoon of gochugaru, Korean chili pepper flakes, 1 tablespoon of toasted sesame oil, and give it a good mix. You know what? A lot of peanut butter noodle recipes call for chili oil, but if you add a little bit of Korean chili pepper flakes and toast it in some oil, you can still get that spicy kick without using chili oil. What? You think this will be too spicy? Don't worry about it. You can adjust the amount, but when it's combined with creamy peanut butter, it's just gonna give you the pleasant spiciness that you're looking for. So don't worry about it. You will absolutely love it. What? You wanna know this kind of tip more and more? I'm so glad you brought that up because everything you need is in this one book. Trust me, with this one book, you can cook more than 100 Korean dishes like a pro. So don't forget to check it out. The link is in the description. Alright, we're set. Let's get cooking. Fill your pot with some water and bring it to a boil. To finish everything in 15 minutes, make sure to boil the water before the prep. Otherwise, you need to waste your precious time until the water comes to a boil. I told you, if you don't take my advice and say, Aaron, it took 30 minutes, then I'm totally not responsible. Alright, get yourself a wok or pan. Add 1 tablespoon of oil and heat it over medium-low heat. Once it gets nice and hot, add the white parts of the green onions, garlic, ginger, and saute those for about 1 minute. And while that's going, cook your noodles according to the package instructions. Here, I'm using jjajangmyeon noodles, but this recipe works great with any kind of noodles. So use your favorite. Spaghetti, udon, or even instant ramen noodles, everything will be fantastic. Once the aromatic just start to go brown and your kitchen is filled with an amazing aroma, add the peanut butter sauce and give it a few stir for about 1 minute. Once everything is well combined, add a 1/4 cup of pasta water from the noodles and stir it around for about 1 to 2 minutes. Actually, to keep it really simple, you don't have to simmer the sauce like this. You could just put the noodles in a bowl and mix them with the sauce and a little bit of pasta water. But this is where all the magic happens. Our beautiful aromatic oil will give it extra fragrance, and simmering like this will help deepen its flavor. So you're gonna get that extra creamy luxurious sauce at the end. Trust me, it's gonna be so much better. Alright, the sauce is done. All we need to do is just add the drained noodles and stir fry them for about 1 minute. And then to thin out the sauce, let's add a quarter cup of pasta water and toast them together for another minute. That's it! Unbelievably simple, right? For these nice creamy noodles, you only need this teeny tiny effort. There's no reason not to try this at home. Alright, finally, it's time to plate. Let's put some noodles in a bowl and sprinkle with some green onions. And last but not least, let's add some julienne and cucumbers and crush the peanuts. How does it look? It looks absolutely delicious, right? Alright, let's call our taste tester. Claire.
엄청 촉촉하니 맛있어 보이네. 위에다가 약간의 그 땅콩을 쫙 뿌려놓은 게 팟타이의 느낌도 난다. 맛있겠다. Alright, it looks super delicious. Let's give it a try. I'm gonna mix it thoroughly. 와, 내가 좋아하는 꾸덕꾸덕한 느낌. 이 크리미한 소스만의 꾸덕꾸덕한 소리. 너무 맛있을 것 같아. I can't wait. 먹어볼게요. Cheers! Oh my god, so good. 너무 맛있는데? 소스가 진짜 대박이네. It is creamy, savory, and nutty, and I can feel a little bit of a spicy kick from it. It literally has everything you want. So good. 거기다가 진짜 땅콩을 위에 쫙 뿌려줬더니 중간중간에 막 땅콩이 아삭아삭 씹히는 게 그게 키포인트네. 너무 맛있다. 지금까지는 약간 이게 뭔가 제대로 크리미한 걸 온전하게 즐겼다면 여기다가 오이까지 먹으면 진짜 상큼한 것까지 더 추가가 돼서 엄청 맛있을 것 같아. 처음부터 그냥 오이랑 다 섞어버리는 것도 방법일 것 같아. 역시 너무 잘 어울리네. 너무 괜찮다. 정말 간단한 재료로 만든 것 같은데 너무 근사하게 잘 나왔는데? 여기에 심지어 프로틴이 안 보여. 내가 좋아하는 계란이라든지 고기, 강고기 이런 게 안 보이는데도 너무 괜찮은데? 전혀 아쉬움이 느껴지지 않아. 괜찮아. 한 10분 투자해서 이렇게 근사하게 누들 디쉬를 만들 수 있다고 한다면 요리 싫어하는 나도 라면 대신 기꺼이 만들 의향이 있어. 그 정도로 괜찮다. 꼭 해봐야 한다. 너무 맛있어.
Today, we're gonna make one of the easiest Korean noodle dishes in history. It comes together in just 10 minutes with a few ingredients. But don't worry about it. I'm not talking about instant ramen. This is my version of traditional Korean soy sauce noodles, and that will become your lifelong favorite. Today, we're gonna be making Deulgireum Makguksu, one of the easiest Korean noodle dishes of all time. It's a kind of bibimbap mixed noodles with soy sauce. But unlike other Korean mixed noodles, this bad boy is made with a lot of perilla oil. So it's gonna be super fragrant and absolutely delicious. And since it's quite similar to pasta salad, you will absolutely love it. I think you're gonna keep making this dish during those hot summer days. For this, you will need some noodles, dry seaweed, toasted sesame seeds, and green onions. That's it! So simple, right? But if you wanna make it more visually appealing, bring some microgreens here. Trust me, these bad boys will take it to the next level. What? You can't get these? Then get yourself some lettuce and thinly slice it. No problem at all. Alright, let's talk about the noodles first. Normally, Deulgireum Makguksu is made with buckwheat noodles, aka soba noodles. But if you can get these, then try with your favorite noodles. I often make this dish with spaghetti noodles and I absolutely love it. So just use what you have in your kitchen. Trust me, everything will be fantastic. Next, toasted sesame seeds. Of course, you could just use them as is, but if you grind them up with a mortar and pestle, trust me, you're gonna get a more intense nutty flavor. But since we're gonna grind our dry seaweed as well, let's just use a blender this time. Alright, put 2 sheets of unseasoned dry seaweed, 4 tablespoons of toasted sesame seeds into a blender, and grind them up until they become a fine powder. But make sure to bring the traditional blender, otherwise you might have to wash 2 blenders at the end. But I don't mind because I have a nice human dishwasher, Claire. Now some of you might ask, Aaron, I don't have that unseasoned dry seaweed, but I have seasoned dry seaweed at home. Can I use them? Yes, you can. You can just tear them into little pieces and use them. No problem at all. Lastly, take 2 or 3 green onions and just thinly slice them. You know what? This is the only time we're gonna use our knife today. Super cool, right? But if you wanna make it even simpler, you can totally cut them with scissors. It really sounds like the recipe that will change your life, doesn't it? Alright, let's move on to the sauce. In a small container, add 3.5 tablespoons of soy sauce, 1 tablespoon of sugar, 1 tablespoon of vinegar, 4 tablespoons of perilla oil, and give it a good mix. We have all the instructions and a list of ingredients on our blog, aaronandclaire.com, so please visit here if you need a written recipe. For information, perilla oil is made from perilla seeds, and it has a unique nutty flavor and aroma. Not only that, it's got a lot of omega-3, so it's really healthy. What? There's no way to get this oil? Don't worry about it. You can substitute with sesame oil. It's still gonna be nutty and fragrant. I'm sure you'll be happy with that. And here's one more tip. Although I use white vinegar today, balsamic vinegar also works great for this dish. That's the reason why I said it's very similar to pasta salad. So if you have balsamic vinegar at home, try with that. That'll be fantastic too. Alright, everything is all set. Let's cook our noodles. Fill your pot with enough water and bring it to a boil. Once it starts boiling, add in your noodles and cook according to the package instructions. I'm gonna be using 200 grams of dried buckwheat noodles for 2 servings. And while you're doing it, if the water rises up and you feel like there's about to be a massive flood of boiling water, don't panic and just add half a cup of water and repeat this process until noodles are cooked through. With this technique, your kitchen will be clean and safe. What? You wanna know this kind of tip more and more? I'm so glad you brought that up because everything you need is in this one book. Trust me, with this one book, you can cook more than 100 Korean dishes like a pro. So don't forget to check it out. The link is in the description. When the noodles are cooked, drain and give them a good rinse on the cold water. This is gonna help remove some of the starch and make the noodles more chewy and bouncy. Once you've done that, squeeze out the noodles as fast as you can. It's very important because any extra water stuck to the noodles can dilute our sauce. So even if you squeeze out the water, I highly recommend you let them drain for about a minute or 2. Alright, let's transfer the noodles to a mixing bowl and add our beautiful sauce over the noodles. Now all you have to do is just toss them together. That's it! Super simple, right? Depending on your preference, you could actually serve the sauce on the side so that everyone can add it to their liking. But since I think this gives it a more authentic vibe, I'm gonna do this way. Once the noodles are nicely coated, grab a noodle and give it a quick taste. And add some more soy sauce if it's needed. Alright, let's plate this up. Place some noodles in a serving bowl and top it up with some seaweed mixture and microgreens. Last but not least, let's sprinkle with our love, green onions. That's it! Couldn't be any easier, right? But if I just serve it like this, my hangry bird at home would be so sad because there's no protein in it. So I'm gonna serve it with some egg on top. How does it look? It looks absolutely amazing, right? Alright, let's go to our taste tester.
Claire,
어머나, 너무 예쁘네. 뭔가 위에 뿌려져 있는 쪽파라든지 새싹이라든지 계란 노른자 때문인지 전체적인 느낌이 뭔가 싱그러운 봄의 느낌이 나. Let's give it a try. 아, 이거 너무 예뻐가지고 섞지 못하겠어. 뭔가 사진을 좀 찍어놔야겠어. 자기가 자주 해주진 않잖아. 그러니까 이번 여름에는 해주겠지. As always, let's mix it. 막 섞어야 되는데 아직도 마음의 준비가 안 됐어. 섞을게. 잘 섞어가지고. 오, 들기름 향 진짜 좋다. Cheers! 와! 예술이네. 맛있어. 와 이거 되게 진짜 고급진 맛이다. It's got the saltiness from the soy sauce and the rich nuttiness from the perilla oil and some freshness from the green onions. Oh my god, it's so good. 일단 저 들기름 향이 엄청 진하면서 향긋하게 전반적으로 샥 면을 딱 감싸주고 거기에다가 중간중간에 이런 김에서 혹은 간장에서 오는 뭔가 풍미 깊은 맛이 입맛을 샥샥 잘 끌어준다. 그리고 이 면도 평상시 쫄깃쫄깃한 면을 자주 먹었었는데 우리가 약간은 입에서 톡톡 끊어지는 그런 느낌이 약간 파스타 먹는 느낌이 나. 맛있다. 그런 의미에서 파스타로 해도 충분히 괜찮겠어. 중간중간에 있는 파랑 새싹이랑 이런 거는 정말 좋은 것 같아. 약간 이렇게 먹을 때마다 입에서 톡톡톡톡 터져지는 그 느낌들이 약간 상큼한 맛을 추가해주면서 리치할 수 있는 그 부분을 상큼한 맛으로 다시 한번 샥 이렇게 보완해준다? 그런 느낌이 나. 맛있다. 나는 사실 이게 김을 생으로 싹 갈아가지고 넣는 거다 보니까 김 싫어하는 사람들한테 혹시 좀 호불호가 나뉘지 않을까? 약간 걱정을 했거든? 근데 막 그런 비린내 나고 막 그런 느낌이 아니야. 그냥 우마미의 느낌이지 막 이렇게 씨푸드 싫어하는 사람들이 싫어하는 그 바다 냄새 이런 거 아니야. So you don't have to worry about it. Even if you're not a big fan of seafood or something. It's not fishy or anything. It's just like MSG from nature. 아 근데 조금 이렇게 활짝 웃기가 살짝 걱정된다. 혹시라도 이 조그만 녀석들이 살짝 묻어있을까봐 이 사이사이에 묻어있을까봐 오늘은 이러고 얘기하는 걸로. So guys, be careful if you are eating with somebody special. This dish is just wonderful as it is. But if you are looking for some other dishes to pair with, I would suggest serving it with some Korean pancakes or mandu, Korean dumplings. Because I always eat them together like combo. You're welcome. I'll put the link, or Adam will put the link in the description. Hope you guys try. Enjoy!
I think most people are missing out on the greatest noodle dish in history. What? You've had it before? I'm not talking about instant yakisoba noodles or takeout. I'm talking about the best yakisoba noodles that will change your life. Today, we're gonna be making yakisoba, one of the most popular Japanese dishes of all time. This is a super simple stir-fried noodle dish that represents Japanese street food, so you can almost find it everywhere on the streets of Japan. But just because it's simple, that doesn't mean it's not great. Once you slurp these noodles, you will find yourself making this dish over and over again. I guarantee it. For this, you will need some pork, cabbage, onion, carrot, mushrooms, garlic, green onions, ginger, and noodles. Here, some of you might say, Aaron, you said it's simple. Why does it need so many? Well, these are for the best result, but you can still make it with only a few ingredients, like onion, cabbage, and noodles. So feel free to adjust it depending on your situation. Don't worry about it. Everything will be fantastic. First, cut 200 grams of pork belly into nice bite-sized pieces. I'm using pork for my protein, but you could also use any protein you like. Chicken, shrimp, tofu, or even no protein at all. Everything will turn out fantastic. So pick your favorite and make it your own version. By the way, if you decide to go for pork, but it's hard to get this kind of thinly sliced one, then get yourself a thick cut of pork belly, freeze it until it gets firm, and just thinly slice it. No problem at all. Next, take 2 cabbage leaves and cut them into bite-sized pieces. I think the real star of this dish is this bad boy. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people agree that this is the most delicious way to eat cabbage. So if you have some cabbage sitting in your fridge, please give this a try. A whole head of cabbage will disappear in no time. Now thinly slice half an onion. And once that's done, julienne some carrots. Compared to other vegetables, it takes longer to cook, so make sure it's nice and thin. Otherwise, you might have to eat raw carrots at the end. This time, take 3 or 4 white button mushrooms and just thinly slice them. If you prefer a more chewy texture, shiitake mushrooms would be a good option too. But since I had these in my fridge, I'm just gonna use them. Now let's prepare the holy trinity: ginger, garlic, and green onions. Actually, to make yakisoba, we don't have to use all these aromatics, but you guys already know that aromatic oil with these bad boys will bring it to the next level, right? Alright, thinly slice some white parts of the green onions, and then cut the green parts into long strips. Once that's done, finely chop 2 cloves of garlic and grate a small knob of ginger. We're gonna need about 1 teaspoon. Alright, the veg prep is done now. Let's move on to the sauce. Here, you could just use some store-bought sauce, but it's actually quite easy to make and that'll be absolutely more delicious. So let's make our own yakisoba sauce. To a small container, add 2 tablespoons of soy sauce, 1 tablespoon of oyster sauce, 1 tablespoon of ketchup, 1 tablespoon of sugar, 1 tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce, 1 tablespoon of mirin, and give it a good mix. So simple, right? There's no reason not to try making it at home. For information, we have all the instructions and a list of ingredients on our blog, aaronandclaire.com. So please visit here if you need a written recipe. This time, let's prepare the noodles. I've got 2 servings of yakisoba noodles here, and I'm just gonna go ahead and dunk them in some hot water and gently stir them around so that the noodles can separate. Here, some of you might say, Aaron, you don't need to do that. You can just put them straight into a pan and start stir frying. Yes, you're right. But if you just throw them into a pan, the noodles won't easily separate and they will break down into little pieces, just like macaroni. So even though they say you can use it right away, please prepare the noodles before you throw them into the pan. Trust me, this little detail will make your dish so much better. Alright, the noodles are separated. Let's take them out and give them a quick rinse. And then to prevent the noodles from sticking, let's coat the noodles with 1 teaspoon of neutral oil. By the way, if you can't find these noodles, you could also try spaghetti noodles. Don't worry about it. I use it all the time and that works great. Alright, get yourself a wok or pan. Add half a tablespoon of oil and heat it over medium-high heat. Once it gets nice and hot, add the pork belly in a single layer and cook for about 2 minutes. Once the pork is no longer pink and you've got some beautiful fat from the pork, add the white parts of the green onions, garlic, ginger, and let all the good flavors infuse for about 1 minute. Once your kitchen is filled with the aroma, throw in your cabbage, onions, carrots, and give them a few stirs. And then keep adding mushrooms, the rest of the green onions, a pinch of salt, some black pepper, and just stir fry them for about 3 minutes. I know it's really hard to resist this delicious smell, but please hang in there. If you resist just a few more minutes, you're gonna have the best Japanese noodle dish that you dreamed of. Once the veggies soften up a little bit, remove from the wok and set them aside. Now in the same wok, add half a tablespoon of oil and heat it over medium-high heat. Once it's heated, place the noodles and spread them out and let them sit for about 2 minutes. Once the noodles are browned and crisp up a little bit, flip and gently separate the noodles using tongs or chopsticks. Like I said earlier, please be careful not to make them into macaroni. Now, let's add half of the sauce and give them a toast for about 1 minute. If you add the sauce right to the noodles before you put the veggies in, trust me, it's gonna help the noodles absorb more of the sauce and it's gonna be so much more flavorful. So please try this technique. You will absolutely love it. When the noodles are beautifully coated in the sauce, add the vegetables and pork and the rest of the sauce. Now all you need to do is just toast everything together for about 2 minutes. Couldn't be any easier, right? Alright, looks like it's done. Let's put some noodles in a serving bowl. And these are totally optional, but if you want to give it more authentic Japanese vibes, then top it with some bonito flakes, aonori seaweed, and pickled ginger. How does it look? It looks fantastic, right? You wanna know how it tastes? Alright, let's go to our taste tester. Claire.
아이고, bless you. 엄마 밥 먹으려고 그랬는데 찌질하다니. Ooh, yakisoba. I'm super hungry. Let's give it a try. 면이 아직 따뜻해서 그런지 위에 있는 갓소부시가 춤을 춰주고 있어. 냄새도 스모키하게 너무 좋구만. 오, 위에 있는 버섯이랑 너무 맛있어 보여. Cheers! 맛있다. 밖에서 사 먹었을 때 그 느낌처럼 맛있는 기름이 전체적으로 누들을 샥 잘 코팅해줘가지고 그 볶음면 느낌이 제대로 촥 잘 살아. 맛있어. 이번엔 고기와 함께. 치얼스. 맛있어. 자칫 느끼할 수 있는 그 삼겹살을 케첩이라든지 워스터소 소스에 약간의 그 새콤한 맛이 있잖아. 그 녀석이 딱 밸런스를 맞춰준다. 삼겹살이랑 너무 잘 어울리는 것 같아. 그런 부분에서. 이 베니쇼가 한번 먹어보겠어. 치얼스. 단순히 그냥 예쁘게만 하는 게 아니야. 진짜 약간 맛을 고급지게 만들어줘. 솔직히 어렸을 때 나라면 절대 안 먹었을 것 같거든? 근데 먹으면 먹을수록 중독적으로 만들어주는 게 바로 이런 녀석들인 것 같아. 향긋하니 너무 좋다.
There are so many stir-fried dishes all around the world, but I'm gonna take one of your favorite and combine it with some noodles. Yes, this recipe is gonna be legendary.
Today, we're gonna be making beef noodle stir fry, but it's not just any stir fry noodle dish. We're gonna combine it with everybody's favorite, Mongolian beef. Super tender beef, nice and chewy noodles, and a beautiful sauce that's full of umami. Seriously, is there anybody who don't love this dish? I don't think so. For this, you will need some beef, onion, green onions, garlic, ginger, and noodles. They are pretty simple ingredients that you might have in your fridge, right? For information, for noodles, I'm gonna be using udon noodles today. But any kind of noodles works great in this recipe, so just use what you have. Everything will be fantastic. Alright, let's prepare beef first. Chinese takeout restaurants normally use flank steak for their beef stir fry, but that's not an absolute rule or something. So I'm gonna be using chuck flap tail that's been sitting in my fridge. If you use a better cut, obviously they'll be more tender and more juicy. So if you have some beef already in your fridge, instead of going to a supermarket for a specific cut, just use what you have. That's the best. Anyways, cut 300 grams of beef into nice bite-sized pieces. But make sure to cut against the grain and slice it on an angle. If you're using a cheap cut of beef, this is very important because if you don't do it, you'll probably see everybody at the table chewing rubber like a cow. Of course, the marinade that we're gonna make later on is gonna help tenderize our meat. But if you add this little technique when prepping your meat, you can completely prevent that disaster. So please make sure to cut against the grain. What? You wanna know this kind of tip more and more? I'm so glad you brought that up because everything you need is in this one book. Trust me, with this one book, you can cook more than 100 Korean dishes like a pro. So don't forget to check it out. The link is in the description. Now let's marinate our beef. Put half a tablespoon of soy sauce, half a tablespoon of Shaoxing wine, a quarter teaspoon of white pepper, a quarter teaspoon of baking soda, 1 tablespoon of cornstarch, 1 tablespoon of neutral oil, and give it a good massage. What? You still worried that your beef is gonna be too tough? Then add a little bit more baking soda. Trust me, it's gonna break down the meat fibers and make it really tender. Alright, while they're having a great vacation in the fridge, let's prepare vegetables. First, take 1 large onion and cut it into thick slices. When you think of a typical Mongolian beef, you probably think of a dish without this bad boy. But today, we're gonna add a little bit of charred flavor using this onion. Don't worry about it, you're gonna love it more. Next, green onions. Thinly slice some white parts for a beautiful aromatic oil and cut some green parts into long strips. If you wanna make them look more fancy, you can cut diagonally. No problem at all. Once that's done, smash 3 cloves of garlic and finely chop them. And then grate a small knob of ginger. We're gonna use about 2 teaspoons. Alright, the veg prep is done. Let's make the sauce. In a small container, add a quarter cup of water, 1 teaspoon of chicken bouillon powder, 3 tablespoons of soy sauce, 2 tablespoons of sugar, 1 tablespoon of oyster sauce, half a teaspoon of dark soy sauce, 2 tablespoons of Shaoxing wine or other cooking wine, some black pepper, 1 tablespoon of cornstarch, and give it a good mix. That's it! So simple, right? For information, we have all the instructions and a list of ingredients on our blog, aaronandclaire.com. So please visit here if you need a written recipe. Alright, fill your pot with some water and bring it to a boil. Once it starts to boil, add in your noodles and cook according to the package instructions. Since this is a stir-fried noodle dish, I highly recommend cooking your noodles first so that all your ingredients are prepped up and ready to go. What? You're worried about your noodles sticking together? Don't worry about it. You can just drain the noodles and coat them with some oil. If you do it this way, they're not gonna stick together, so it's gonna be a lot easier to cook them in a pan. Alright, get yourself a wok or pan, add 1 tablespoon of oil and heat it over high heat. Once it gets nice and hot, add the marinated beef, spread it out, and let it sear for about 1 minute or until nicely browned on the bottom. Browning your beef will create a nice crust on the outside and give you a lot more flavor. So make sure your pan is really hot. Otherwise, instead of getting a nice crust on the outside, it's just gonna create steam. Once the beef is nicely browned on the bottom, flip and cook the other side for about a minute or 2. It doesn't have to be cooked through because we're gonna stir fry one more time with our beautiful aromatics. Alright, let's remove it from the wok and set it aside. Now in the same wok, add 1 tablespoon of oil and heat it over high heat. Once it's heated, throw in your onions, spread them out, and let them sit for about 1 to 2 minutes, just like we did with the beef. This is gonna get them nice and charred, and you will eventually get that nice smoky burnt flavor that you're looking for. And if you wanna add a little bit of a kick to this, then add 3 or 4 dried chilies or pepperoncino. Since my hungry bird at home loves a spicy kick, I'm gonna go ahead and add some now. But don't worry about it, this is totally optional. Now let's add the white parts of the green onions, garlic, ginger, and saute those for about 1 minute. Make sure you give it a good stir and let all the flavors infuse. It's gonna coat our beef and noodles, and that will make a huge difference in taste. Once your kitchen is filled with the aroma, add in your beef and noodles and stir fry them for about 1 minute. When the beef and noodles look nice and shiny and they are wearing the greatest perfume of all time, pour in the sauce and toast them together for about 2 minutes. That's it! Couldn't be any easier. You can't say it's too complicated, right? When the beef and noodles are perfectly coated with the sauce, turn the heat off. And then add the rest of the green onions, 1 teaspoon of toasted sesame oil, and give it a final mix. To get that iconic look of Mongolian beef, the green onions have to be cooked with the residual heat, like this. If you put them in too early, you're not gonna get a freshness. You're gonna make green onions that look super exhausted, just like me on a Friday night. You don't wanna see that, right? Alright, before they get too mushy, let's put some noodles on a serving plate. And for a prettier presentation, let's put some green onions and chilies on top of the noodles. How does it look? Looks awesome, right? Alright, let's go to our taste tester.
우와! 냄새며 비주얼며 진짜 너무 맛있어 보이는 거 아니야? 우와! 이건 직감적으로 내가 좋아할 수밖에 없는 비주얼이다. 혼자 다 먹으라고 하는 건 아니겠지? 접시도 주세요. 좀 덜어서 먹어봅시다. 우후! 소고기랑 파까지. 파도 많이. I will save my words. Let's try. Cheers! 고기 먼저 먹어야 되는 거야? 누들 먼저 먹어야 되는 거야? 누들을 먹고 바로 고기를 넣겠어. That's my strategy. 와! It's unbelievable! 너무 맛있다. First of all, I absolutely love this Chinese style marinade. Especially the beef is this much big, but it absolutely melts in my mouth. It is super tender, super juicy. It's unbelievable. 너무 맛있어. 거기다 이 우동면은 진짜 설명이 필요 없어. It's very chewy and bouncy, so I feel like I'm eating a very long rice cakes. 근데 이 우동면이 진짜 이 맛있는 소스를 진짜 잔뜩 흡수해가지고 너무 맛있어. 거기다가 그 소스에서 약간 그 샤오싱 와인 향이 살짝, 너무 과하지도 않고 살짝 나는 게 그게 뭔가 되게 고급진 느낌을 주는 것 같아. 와, 진짜 너무 맛있다. 밖에서 몽골리안 비프 사 먹으면 되게 맛있긴 한데 나한테는 살짝 그게 좀 달거든? 그런데 이거는 그 단맛보다는 확실히 조금 더 짭조름한 맛이 더 살아있는 그런 소스인 것 같아서 그게 마음에 드네. 단맛이 전혀 없는 건 아닌데 그 자연스러운 양파에서 나오는 그런 자연스러운 단맛인 것 같아. 너무 맛있어서 몇 입 안 먹고 한 입밖에 안 먹었는데 정신없이 그냥 얘기한 것 같다. 이제는 좀 즐겨봅시다. I think I have to dig in more. Hope you guys try too. I'm sure you're gonna love it. Enjoy!